interesting that typically what we've heard from clients that we are working with, that they're more comfortable banking tier twos and threes. And I get a little fuzzy on that because tier ones are the ones that are required to have the licenses. And if you've seen the, license application in California, it's like 140 pages. So, I mean, there's a lot of vetting that is done by the state of California for the tier one. So, I I as a banker would think I have some confidence in that vetting process, maybe more than a tier two or three that's not required to have a license. So um, interesting. We had someone come into the chat room. I don't know if I need to divulge names, but I was going to mention this anyways. But um, Fiserv has informed some clients that if they bank cannabis, it would be a violation of their contract. And we sort of ran it up the flagpole and we got a no, that can't be, but nothing in writing. No lawyers would comment on it. I don't know who said that. So they, poo-pooed it, but won't respond in writing to say that is not the fact. So I think your point is so well taken on one, the correspondent bank, and two, the vendors, that they're very, very leery of it. And I think when a bank enters, into making cannabis, those have to be considerations, and you have to, have a plan to say, if this is not accepted, what am I going to do? And perhaps that needs to be part of your program. I'm curious, when you said you were finding ways to automate monitoring processes, have you looked at technology solutions that are out there, that are the
Yeah.
newer ones, I would say?
Yeah. No, for cannabis, no, not at this point. It's for us on some of these, we're still working through what it is we really want to do, what it is do we really need, working with them on individual basis on what can they provide versus what do we want. And so right now we're in a little bit of a learning curve. The team that we have, they're very good at extracting data out of our core system, putting it into a database and creating reports. And that's what we did for the money service businesses. We're developing that out for the cannabis. So it's right now, it's really a work in progress for us. I mean, our cannabis, we really onboarded them at the beginning of early this year, first quarter. And so we're working through a lot of that.
Okay. Tammy, I have a question for you. Are you still on, or are you muted? I think she's muted.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, has the Bank of Hemet, I know you're busy with MSBs and other initiatives, but has the Bank of Hemet, I saw on one of your slides when you were talking about the FTE requirement and the little bubbles you had, and banking marijuana was, I think, the biggest little bubble. Has the bank been looking at it or considering it, or is it just something not on the table right now?
It's been something we've absolutely talked about, and I think it's because of the many inquiries that we've received, and there's a lot of long-standing business clients that we already have that are investing in these type of businesses and looking for a place to bank. And I think, especially if you look at our market area, we're really close to one of the biggest producers of marijuana, and that's the Coachella Valley. So,
Right.
We do have so many of those potential businesses. But I think, we were looking at all of those things that were just discussed in terms of, resources and the onboarding process and getting your program up to speed. And it is something that we feel is a little bit of a challenge right now. We really want to do, as Radhika said, that you perform a risk assessment or a readiness assessment to make sure that it's something that you want to do. And I think because so much is still uncertain, it is, you just don't know if you're a core provider, like you said, or if you're a correspondent bank, because we've been told that too, especially on the correspondent side. So part of that readiness would mean we would probably need to find a new correspondent bank. So at this point in time, I think we're definitely not ready to do it, based on the fact we're just entering MSB space. But we know that at some point in time, we're going to have to make a decision one way or the other, for certain.
Well, and I do have to agree with you. I, of course, live and work in the Coachella Valley, and I would say there are more dispensaries than Starbucks now. That there's one on every single corner, and it's pretty amazing. And I mean, I'm talking Palm Desert and Palm Springs. I'm not talking just Coachella, etc. So it is a very, you're absolutely right. A lot of money, lot of land being bought up too. So it's definitely here.
Ruth, this is Gary. I had a couple of questions for both Tom and Dana. One, of course, is that both of you are state entities that are also regulated by either the FDIC or the FRB or whatever. Have you noticed a difference in how the state examines this area as compared, says, to the FDIC or the FRB or whoever federal regulator you have?
This is Tom. We haven't, oh, I'm sorry. Dana, do you want to go?
No, go ahead.
Okay. We haven't had the state come in, but as you mentioned, when we were in that negotiations or in contract to sell the bank, they were the best cheerleader for us. It'll be interesting when we do have the FDIC come in, but the fact that we've stayed in close contact with the BSA examiner, I think will portend well for us. So I'll find out first quarter next year.
Dana, what about you?
Yeah, so we had the state examine us, so we will not have the FDIC until mid next year. And the state went well. I mean, the state wants banks to bank it, so I think they're pretty accepting of it. It's interesting because normally the state gives me a much harder time on my MSBs than the FDIC does. And I think this is going to be just the opposite. The FDIC is like what you guys have said. They want you to dot your I's and cross your T's, but they're not going to, sign off on anything. And so it'll be an interesting exam. I think because of our MSBs and our robust BSA system that we've had, and the years of having what I think are very rigorous BSA exams because of the MSBs. I mean, we are considered, when they do their internal review, they do consider us a higher risk bank on the BSA side, and usually their scope on BSA is much greater. So I've been used to very intensive BSA exams over, the last 20 years. So I expect it to continue to be an intensive BSA exam, but we're used to that.
I'm also curious that, we have back in Washington the Safe Banking Act. That's, and if there's a change in administration or there's been some discussion about that moving a little bit farther down the path, would the passage of the Safe Banking Act have a impact on your assessment of this area and maybe increasing the number of CRBs that you're willing to bank if you've got kind of an open platform there?
Yeah, I think that we're looking for quality clients is what we're looking for, not the number of clients. And so right now, any good quality CRB that comes to us and we can do a good job of our risk assessment on them and feel we can have a good relationship, we're going to move forward with onboarding them as a client. I feel we can build the program no differently than we built our MSB. And so I would love to have the act passed. I do think it would make a difference on how FDIC approaches it, but I don't think for us it's going to be that big of a difference because of our MSBs and the CRBs. I think we're always just going to have be considered a high-risk bank for BSA and always have an intensive examination regardless of whether it passes or not.
Well, and do you anticipate if the Safe Banking Act passes, you talked about your vendors and one of the was talking about.
Yeah, it'll make a difference there. That's where it will make a difference. Because we have been told repeatedly by a number of vendors that they're waiting for the Safe Banking Act to pass, particularly the debit and credit card processors.
Right.
The ones that we bank, they're using it. Most of them are using a particular bank that will do their debit card and credit card processing, but they would rather not use that facility. They would rather use a different facility and do their merchant banking with us. And so that's where I think the difference will be, is it will change how our vendors approach. And I will have more services to offer. I mean, right now I only have one armored service I can go to. And I think that will be the big difference.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Dana on that. I don't really have too much more to add to it.
And one other follow-up question to both of you is that the entities that you've been banking, the CRBs or MRBs, I assume that they're within close geographic, they're adjacent basically to your branches, or do you go out of the area to bank any of these CRBs or MRBs?
Dana?
Yeah. All but one is in the 3 counties that we service. One is in an adjacent county. They're actually in Sacramento County. And that one was interesting in that particular client. There's a lobbying firm in Sacramento, and it was through the lobbying firm that I was connected to this cannabis customer. And so, very high quality, very strong. And so because it is an adjacent county, we were willing to go there.
Makes sense.
Yeah, we of our customers, they're primarily in the immediate Bay Area. We do have one in Sacto, and we do have one that we're going to be onboarding in Santa Barbara. So, but we're just sticking to California.
Yeah, since we do site visits, it needs to be, within a close enough distance for us to do our site visits.
Yeah, we don't call them site visits. We call them field trips.
Yeah.
No, Tom, you would call it the Santa Barbara long weekend.
I'd take one there.
Radhika, I wanted to ask you if you had questions for the panelists, or I know that, you've been involved in this space too for a while, or any comments that you wanted to add?
I do have a question in terms of, I know that the regulators, FDIC even said, we will kind of sort of turn a blind eye as long as you have an effective program, right? But have they given you any guidance in terms of what they expect for reporting to your board? Do you have to update your or provide more additional reporting or anything like that? Or is it part of your quarterly BSA reporting?
Ours wasn't.
Go ahead, Dana.
Okay, I was going to say, we incorporated ours into our BSA reporting. We already had a separate section in there for the MSBs. So we just took that same model and added a section for the CRBs. And so we do that. We do an annual risk assessment on the program, but we also have quarterly reporting for the program that we do as well.
Yeah, we do all of those. We actually report to the board on a monthly basis because we are new, and they want to make sure that we're doing it correctly. So they're fully informed. Yeah.
Okay, I have a couple more questions.